Okay. Welcome everybody to the April 24th council meeting. We have the agenda before us. I just would like to acknowledge that we're on the traditional territories of the Shiano speaking of the Shiano First Nations and the Suk First Nations, on whose land we live, work, and play. Thank you very much. So with that, I just want to turn to the agenda and the approval of the agenda. We have two late breaking items of business from a letter from Bev Bacon regarding 4409 William Head Road. We'll add that to 10A in your agenda. And then we have the new business supplemental information regarding the award of a contract, Metchosin School Washroom and Kitchen renovation RFP. And so we'll add that to 12A. Okay? You got that written in your agenda?
And a Rising report?
And I'll do the Rising report in the mayor's. Thank you for reminding me, in the mayor's report. Yeah. So with that, I'll entertain a motion for the amended agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Shukin. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. That carries. Thank you. Okay, we have two presentations this evening. First of all, I'd like to invite Lenora Lee from KPMG to give the public what we've heard regarding the draft 2022 audited financial statements. Welcome, Lenora.
Thank you. Thanks for having me at the meeting tonight. I'd just like to share a bit of information about the financial statements included in tonight's package on page 41. KPMG has substantially completed the audit of the District of Metchosin's consolidated financial statements and have met with council to describe our findings and overall opinion. We have prepared a clean and unqualified audit report, which indicates that there are no material misstatements within the financial statements. There's no outstanding matters at this time related to the completion of the audit other than acceptance of the financial statements by council. The financial statements include the district's proportionate share of West Shore Parks and Recreation Centre. And highlights for the 2022 fiscal year included transition to RCMP, a number of grants received for renovations and capital projects, as well as road resurfacing. The annual surplus following the accounting standards was $1.375 million for the fiscal 2022 year, and an equal and entirety of that surplus was reinvested into capital projects and capital acquisitions during 2022. The assets of the district increased on a year-over-year basis from $15.9 million to $17.9 million, and that was primarily related to the surplus during the year, as well as a couple of grants that were outstanding to be collected at the end of the year. Total liabilities increased from $2.4 million to $3.3 million, and that was primarily due to outstanding payables at the end of the year increased. The net financial assets or non-financial assets of the district increased from $13.5 million to $35.6 million, and that was mostly due to capital additions, the salt shed with public works yard, renovations at the school that were funded by a grant, as well as paving on Rocky Point, Arden, and Windover Terrace. Total revenue of the district increased on a year-over-year basis, and total tax revenue was $3.3 million. Additional sources of revenue included sales and user fees, government transfers, investment income. Total expenses of the district increased on a year-over-year basis, primarily due to changes in the collective agreement, as well as increasing costs in protective services. The accumulated surplus of the district represents its total net worth or net resources that have been generated since incorporation. That balance increased from $49.1 million to $50.5 million, and that was attributable to the annual surplus. Of that accumulated surplus, 36 million has already been invested into capital assets. 12.8 million is held in reserve, and the remainder, approximately 2 million, is held in unrestricted surplus. Those were the highlights of the statements that I wanted to share with you tonight. We'd like to thank management for all of the assistance in the audit process. We typically ask a lot of questions as part of our audit, and really satisfied with the level of support and access we received throughout the process. Happy to address any questions.
Okay, thank you. We have had an opportunity to ask many questions of you, and thank you for your services and for your good work, and also thank our staff as well. Okay, open this up. Do we have any questions?
Thanks.
Yeah, go ahead.
Lenora, thanks Lenora for the working explanation. From time to time, when you're reviewing audited statements like this, you come across the word control, and you're reviewing the controls that we may have in place or not. Could you explain what those are and how we did it?
Sure. So inherent in a financial statement audit, we are required to gain an understanding of the internal controls of the organization, which is in part how we develop our audit plan around risks of the organization. In our findings report, we did not note any significant or material control deficiencies in the work that we performed, and as a result, no significant concerns in that area. The types of controls that we typically review would be things such as separation of duties, that individuals receiving money are not the same individuals that pay out money. Internal controls around review of payments prior to being made, so that there is a review of supporting documentation prior to the authorization, as well as various authorization limits for particular individuals within an organization. So in that process, we didn't find any deviations or exceptions from what we expected to be in place based on the district's policies.
Great, thanks.
Okay, so our community is probably most interested in the RCMP, and you noted that as one of the highlights, or maybe lowlight, but highlights of this report. The RCMP and the grants. Did you want to go into the RCMP just a little bit more?
Sure. Within the 2022 financial statements, there is costs that have been recorded as expenses, as well as accounts payable at year end. Based on management's best estimate, that was valued at $600,000, and was agreed upon service agreement signed in 2023 with service related to 2022. We're comfortable that that value is reasonable based on the correspondence that we reviewed, and the financial statements also include disclosure of the escalation of that cost over time, moving from 3 officers to 5 officers.
Okay, great. Any other questions from the committee, from the council? Go ahead.
Lenora, you mentioned that we had a clean and unqualified audit report. That means we're in pretty good shape in terms of how all of the accounting's been done in the district.
Correct.
And how have we done in past years?
The district has always received, as far as I've been involved, a clean and unqualified opinion, and there have been no material errors that are noted within them.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, with that, thanks again, Lenora. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I'll turn to Superintendent Todd Preston.
Your Worship, Council, I feel like I might need to call for backup after we talk about finances regarding the RCMP here. Thanks very much for having me here. Obviously, there's a number of things I wanted to talk to Council and, of course, the community about. First of all, our 2022 annual report. We can perhaps peruse through that, go through some of the numbers there, and I'd certainly welcome questions pertaining to that. Another thing is to go over, and I know we talked about this briefly last time we spoke about priorities for this year. Our fiscal year starts in April, so we've canvassed 4 of the 7 communities, and I'd like to hear a little more from yourself as to what you see as some of the priorities that you'd like us to focus on throughout the year. I'd like to go through the last month here just to give, and I like to do this at all councils and committee of the wholes, just an overview of just a variety of complaints that the RCMP has gone through, just so you can kind of see the types of calls that we go to in no particular order. And then we can just talk about some of the challenges that kind of I forecast moving forward. So perhaps I'll start with the last month here, just to kind of go into some of the complaints we've had. So we had 56 files from in the month of March in Metchosin. So far in April, we've had 37 calls. As far as traffic enforcement, in March, we wrote 13 warnings for traffic-related offenses in Metchosin, 4 speeding tickets, 2 box 3s, which means that the vehicle was towed. It had deficiencies around the vehicle that needed to be remedied. 5 failed to produce insurance tickets, and another 5 warnings for the same. Sometimes an individual will forget, and it might be a day late or half a day late, and then sometimes it's months or years. So I think there's where you'll see the discretion utilized. We had 6 instances where our ALPR found, so on our vehicles, certain vehicles, we have an automatic license plate reader. And so you'd think that they're on all of these vehicles, but they're actually not. And so we have to run the individual plates, but this thing does a 360 around and runs every plate that it comes across. And so we have, I think, 3 or 4 or 5 of those in the attachment there. And as a result of that, we found 6 instances in this area where individuals were non-compliant with either registering their vehicles or something to do with the administrative issue with the vehicle or license. Traffic enforcement so far in April, we gave 13 warnings so far, 1 no driver's license, 4 no insurance tickets, and 10 other violation tickets. So I've heard from council that you want more enforcement in the area, you want appropriate enforcement in the area, and to that end, I think this is a reasonable approach, given some the warnings versus the tickets. We're not out here to simply, for lack of a better word, hammer the public. It's to educate the public just as much as it is to deter the public. So with that, we've done community policing units partnering up with the Metchosin Fire Department this week for safety talks. I think that's this Saturday, if I recall. Some of the files that we've had on April 1st, we did traffic enforcement patrols, led an officer pull over a speeding vehicle on the 3700 block of Soup Road. The driver was intoxicated and issued a 90-day IRP and a 30-day impound. On April 3rd, we had assault on Kangaroo Road, and we're still investigating allegations pertaining to that assault allegation. We had another vehicle on April 3rd. We had a vehicle crashed into an embankment on Rocky Point Road. Driver lost control of the car, no major injuries, not intoxicated. We had, on April 11th, the vehicle struck a hydro pole on Rocky Point Road and East Soup Road. The driver crawled out and was picked up there before police attended. The driver was tracked down but not intoxicated. On April 16th, we reported an erratic driver, one forcing the other into oncoming traffic, starting off in Metchosin, but both vehicles located and dealt with by the Souk RCMP as it entered into their jurisdiction, and they were giving warnings for their inappropriate driving. April 21st, traffic unit was doing enforcement with the ALPR, caught a disqualified driver on Souk Road. The driver was also arrested for prohibited driving and got a 7-day impound. On March 2nd, we had a loud music complaint on Albert Head Lagoon. Police were at the location. Observed pickup was a pickup that was stolen out of Sydney. The driver was also suspected of credit card fraud for cards that were stolen and used in Langford. The suspect was arrested and the vehicle seized. The suspect also in possession of a crossbow, and contrary to prior court ordered no weapons conditions and arrested for breach as well. On March 3rd, a phone of or call of fraud. An elderly person was convinced to give their banking info over to fraudsters, and I have to comment that is just all too often right now. And yeah, I don't know how much more we can do in terms of education. We just keep trying to tell as many people as possible, to tell the seniors in the community to just be wary. If it doesn't feel right, check with somebody else before you start giving your details. It's absolutely appalling, and it's heartbreaking to hear some of the stories. On March 13th, we had a complaint of a erratic driver on Highway 14 in Metchosin. The vehicle was pulled over. A driver was found to be impaired by drug. The vehicle was towed, and the individual was given a prohibition. On March 15th, a traffic complaint at Woody's Lagoon, aggressive tailgater. Driver was issued a warning. On the same date, proactive traffic patrols in Souk Road. Found no insurance, failed to produce driver's license. That individual was towed. And on March 25th, we had an assault involving some neighbors, and that investigation is still ongoing, but I believe charges will be forwarded. So those are just a handful of complaints. Like I said, we had 56 in March, we have 37 so far. That's just a handful of some of the things we're dealing with. So as you spoke before, the council decided to give five officers and 2 support staff. Would you like me to articulate to?
Yes,
Yeah.
I would.
So one of the things when we were going back and forth as to what would be the appropriate level of service and the cost associated with it, and first of all, I fully appreciate the significant cost around policing. I wish I could do something about that, but there's not much we can do. So with 5 members, essentially you're able to continue having the same level of service that you had before. If you had 4 members, it was determined that you wouldn't have access to a lot of the, like traffic section, for instance. It would just be a 24-hour support or response. So when you see a lot of communities throughout British Columbia, throughout Canada for that matter, it's in these types of small communities, the level of service is limited, and you can see some of the complaints that are coming from that in the northern parts about policing and a lack thereof, and you don't see the police very often, and it's only when there's a complaint, and that's just due to the limited capacity. Here, you're fortunate in the sense that you can piggyback off. There's 103 members, soon to be 110 members this year at the West Shore Detachment, and with that comes things like a drug section, a community policing section, traffic services, special victims units, general investigation sections, police dog services, ident, VIMQ, all those things that you wouldn't ordinarily see in a very small community. You're able to actually get those services as and when you need them. And unfortunately we've seen before with major crimes and significant incidents that occurred here, those would be significant bills that would come to you. So essentially what you're doing is you're buying an insurance policy with the RCMP and with your partner agents and with your partners, Langford, Colwood, View Royal, Highlands, Metchosin, and Zongies, and yourself are all partnering into one integrated detachment. And so it comes down to economy of scale, and you're certainly getting, in my opinion, a very good deal. And there's not many other places in British Columbia that we have access to, with a community of 5,000 people, to have access to 95 or 100 other officers and support sections as and when required. So I know it's kind of a tough pill to swallow, and one that you've been dreading for a while. The last person that moved in, I'm sure is not real popular, that hit the 5,000. But I'm happy to answer any questions pertaining to that, if there is anything in the crowd. That's appropriate, Your Worship.
Yeah, could you explain, a lot of the community members have heard about VIMQ.
Sure.
If you could explain VIMQ to everybody.
So the Integrated Major Crime section, they deal with homicides. And so homicide investigations are very complex investigations, and they're very, very expensive, and they certainly can. It depends on, obviously, how serious, but the complexities of it. And so if you're not part of the VIMQ package, so if you were just standalone detachment and you had to pay extra for VIMQ, if you had a homicide, and unfortunately you've had, I believe it's 3 here in the last 7 years, those can be upwards of $1 million bills. And so it's very tough to budget, for a municipality when all of a sudden it's a $1 million bill for an extraordinary investigation. And you don't have a choice. Here's your bill. We can't not investigate a murder. And people just have to take our word, unfortunately, and you can watch TV and so forth, but murder investigations, we can't hold back. You gotta follow all the stops, right? So I appreciate that everybody understands the gravity and the seriousness of why I think Mayor and Council had selected this level of service, because it really is protecting you, the taxpayers, in the sense that you're given an insurance policy. I know a lot of other detachments would love to be part of IMPU, and unfortunately at this point, it's not offered to every detachment. Only certain detachments are able to. I know the province is working towards getting everybody into this, but places like Nanaimo, Comox, Campbell River, Duncan, they're not part of IMPU, and so those bills can get very, very steep very quickly. Is there any questions about that? Okay.
Yeah, I have one.
Sure.
Yeah, Rick, you'll have to come to the microphone. You have to share the microphone if you're going to ask your question. Thanks.
Rick Perron, resident. So if some people come over from Surrey and decide to have a shootout in our parking lot, does that really involve Metchosin?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
So we have to pay the bill for that.
Unfortunately, it's where the offense takes place, and yeah, that's unfortunately that is the reality. And you know, you've had a number of murders out here in the past that are related, perhaps, to organized crime. That's in other areas, and you know, sometimes people feel it perhaps safer to do those types of offenses in a rural area where there's no witnesses. And, although I say that, but in the Lower Mainland, there's gangland shootings all the time. So I guess it all depends on the mentality. But yeah, unfortunately, that to answer your question, yes. They are.
Thanks.
You bet.
Just a general question.
Sure.
You'll have to come to the mic, please, Eric. Thank you. And identify yourself.
Eric White, 4290 Metchosin Road. Will the 5 members be consistent faces, or are they going to be rotating amongst the 100?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so how we work in this detachment here is every member is all, they're integrated. So you're going to see, you know, not just 5 members, you're going to see 110 members that are already out here at any given time. Depends on the line of work. So is this from a community policing standpoint, we have community policing officers that their job is to become, ingratiating to the communities, our youth, our seniors, we go to the homes, we go to the schools and all that sort of stuff. So those ones you'll see more often, more frequently. But from day to day, we have watches right now. So the watch right now, there's 10 members, a staff sergeant, a corporal, and 8 constables, as well as a peak policing shift from 10:30 to 10, where there could be upwards of 4 members. So at any given time, there could be 14 members in the whole West Shore. And it all depends, when the call comes in, who's going to come to that call. So we pool all our resources, and that's why I talked about economy of scale, where if you only had 5 members, and only those 5 members were coming to your calls, you would have a lot of time where there's nobody working. They're on leave, they're on training, they're hurt, they're injured, maternity, paternity, or they're just not on shift. So you'd call and you'd have to wait, or somebody would have to get out of bed to come to your call. Where right now, the way it's set up is that somebody will come. Somebody's always, you have 24-hour policing, and somebody will respond. Any other questions? Yeah, come on.
Is this related
Oh,
to you? Oh, great. Nicole Shukin, resident. This isn't related to the VIMCU setup, but it's just around like medical marijuana. And I heard that there might be some change in the federal legislation that allows the RCMP to just even like discover where medical marijuana operations are taking place and make sure they're legit. Am I just dreaming, or?
No, through Health Canada, there would be licensed growers, and we would be able to, work, cohesively and collaboratively with them to determine, who's a licensed grower, how much they're allowed to grow, and if there's, reasons to believe that they're in excess. But we'd obviously be able to work with Health Canada on that.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm happy if you have concerns about that, call us, and we can certainly look into that. One of the other things that the public perhaps isn't aware of is the, I'm sorry, my back is too, I apologize, the decriminalization of certain drugs. And I don't know if everybody knows about the decriminalization. In the province of British Columbia, there's a 3-year experiment, just due to the deaths associated with fentanyl and with all drugs. It's an epidemic, and so in the province of British Columbia, it is no longer illegal to, you can be outside using cocaine and fentanyl and heroin and illicit drugs, in public places. And so so we get a lot of calls. People are very concerned about how the law has changed, and we have to provide that educational piece to them that although there's somebody with a crack pipe at wherever, it's not supposed to be at schools or playgrounds, but anywhere else essentially. Yeah, so just a little educational piece for you on that. Sorry, go ahead, ma'am.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so turning back to the council now, we had, or you had asked, we had a conversation about what our priorities would be. And I'm interested in having a conversation with council about what are your priorities? What are you feeling? We've gone through this long exercise of signing on for the policing, and we're responsible for up to five members, 3 members last year, 2022 to 2023, 2023 to 2024, 4 members, and ramping up to 5. So we're paying for the costs, but I'm just wondering, I've got my own ideas. I just would like to hear from council. What are your policing priorities, and what kind of collective instructions can we give to Superintendent Todd Preston, because he's asked that. So, okay, so let's open this up. Who wants to go first? Or shall I? Okay, Sherry, go ahead.
Yeah, well, as mentioned before, I think speeding is a big one in Metchosin. We get, at least for me anyway, the most complaints I get are about speeding. And so, maybe more creative ways to slow people down would be terrific if there is such a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the speeding is in not just on the main roads, but a lot of it is on the more residential areas and the more danger spots. We get reports of people nearly getting run off the road and stuff, and as guys are flying around corners to get home. So that's definitely one thing. Another one is, would you be willing to help us figure out where in the area we might eventually look at lowering speed limits, and also to put in traffic calming measures, whether speed humps or things like that. It'd be good to get all the information we can get about possible recommendations for things we might do down the road. And apart from that, my other question is, in your report, I was just wondering when you expect maybe to establish a mental health unit.
Yeah, so to answer your first part, I'd be happy to look at some of the traffic calming measures, anything we can do to prevent car accidents and some of the gross speeding that goes on out here, because it is substantial, especially in the summertime, and especially with the motorcycles. I know that we have, and some of the recreational cars that are being used. It is significant here. So what I am going to do is I'm going to ask that our traffic corporal perhaps contact yourself as a protective services chair, and to go through some of the more significant issues, like the areas there specifically. And what I would like to hear, and I tell this to all the councils, is if you could send through staff, if you could send me, if you have certain areas, I can't fix it if I don't know it. So I'm happy to help. I'm happy to look at whatever areas that you're talking about. It's a big geographical area, no different than the other one. So if you could tell me, hey, I'm really noticing, like Doug Kobayashi told me, hey, we're really noticing on Kelly Road, there's substantial speeding on Kelly Road. Yeah, I recognize that one. That is a bad one. That's great. Then I pass that on to our traffic services, and our traffic services can put more effort and more focus on that area. If you are able to do the same for me here, it'd be greatly appreciated. I mean, we know the obvious ones, but you're right. There's certain ones here that perhaps I'm not aware of. And we have done things, traffic calming, and I get this asked all the time. And sometimes, people are like, well, should we put speed bumps in, or should we do, this or that? And, I know Langford is chosen a lot of circles, we call them traffic circles there, small ones, just so that people can't get that straight away. They gotta go around in the downtown core. We have the traffic, little happy faces and sad faces, and they actually, surprisingly, do work quite well. I saw that in Colwood by one of the schools there, and it seems to work quite efficiently. I don't know, the speed bumps are never really popular with anybody, but that's another one. But we could talk about that as well, perhaps in Speed Watch, having some volunteers out here as well to help. The mental health team, that is a huge priority for us this year. Mental health calls, when we look at violence, which is up, not in your area, thankfully, but in overall in the West Shore, violent crime is up. Our shoplifting's up 100% from last year, 100% in Langford, 88% I believe it is overall, but 100% in Langford where the majority of the shops are. And a lot of that is, there's no doubt in my mind, associated with mental health and illness. There's been a lot of talk, a lot of media stuff about, not just the mental health, but the violence associated with the mental health. So getting that on track is a priority. So the bodies that are coming from Langford this year, that is what is earmarked to go towards 3-person mental health team. And as of this morning, in fact, we were trying to get support from the province, and it sounds like there has been money allocated, not directly for us as of yet, but hopefully it will be for nurses to partner up with us for that purpose, just like other communities are already doing. It's not a new thing.
Okay, will that be similar to the CAR 54 in Nanaimo, the program there?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, great. Councillor Shukin.
Great, thank you very much. So just to echo Councillor Epps' comments on traffic, yeah, great point. We have wonderful roads here, and motorcyclists and loud cars enjoy them. Is there anything that exists, or do you think could exist, in terms of controlling, finding potentially cars that are souped up and make excessive noise? Is that a possibility, or is it in the works? Or?
No, it's just a very difficult thing to enforce. The decibels, we have done it, and where it's obvious that it's been modified. I know I've been asked this many times by other communities as well, and I find it just as annoying as everybody else. And so if an exhaust has been modified and they believe it's more than X number of decibels, they can make them get it tested to show that it's under the allowable decibels that you're allowed. So I mean, I can put that down and ask again and see. It's a very difficult thing, and then of course you have to be there when these vehicles are coming by. So unless you know at a certain date or time, a time that this vehicle always comes by, that makes it easier for us. But it's tough to put a resource there just on the off chance that the loud vehicle's coming, because you have to actually hear it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. You were asking about areas that present a danger to traffic, to pedestrians. I will give you one now.
Sure.
It's down William Head Road, just past Pearson College Drive. There's an a set of curves that climb up to where you go to William Head Prison. And I've stood on that road numerous times, and whether it surprises people or they just like to take the curves quickly, it's a really dangerous stretch.
Okay.
And what's interesting is there's a shift change that occurs, I think it's at 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. So there's a set time there. But it's a very narrow road. There's buses that go up there, and traffic on regular occasions. So there's one.
No, that's all great info.
Great.
Okay. Anything else? Councillor Shukin?
No,
No?
thank you.
Okay. Councillor Donaldson?
In regards to the mental health, I'm familiar with the unit that they have in the city, but they have a police officer, 2 social workers, and a psych nurse. And it's been quite successful. Is that something that RCMP might do out in the West Shore at some point?
Yeah, that's exactly what we were.
Yes.
Yeah, that's exactly what we were talking about. There is, we have 3 members that are designated. We'll fill those positions this year, and along the way, we hope that we'll be able to partner up with the province and the on that. Invaluable. Try to get in front of these complaints, and get these people with the appropriate resources. We just hope that the resources are available when we do.
Yeah. I was contacted twice on 2 different occasions. I worked with a youth organization for about 15 years, and it was incredibly successful for all parties. So it was good to know.
It is, and one of the other things that we do is the other municipalities have just because of the backlog of youth needing to see councillors. They actually fund 2 positions with Pacific Family Services, even though it's a provincial responsibility. The cities have graciously, they pay for those 2 positions, and we partner up with one of those positions with our community policing. And so just for this very reason what you're talking about, like you get the youth that they're on the fork on the road, or perhaps going home is not the best, they don't want to go home, and frankly it's probably not the best place for them. And so we have our community policing officers working with Pacific Family, and they do exactly what the mental health team does, but it's amazing, you know, some of the vulnerable youth that are, especially the females that we initially found that, you know, were trying to be sexually exploited by others. And it's just, you know, if I could go through the stories, it's extremely sad, but it's on the same token, it's great that we have these teams, these resources available in this area. And so when we talk about, you know, the 5 and 2, there's another reason, you know, those are the types of things that you're going to benefit from, because you have vulnerable youth just like everybody else. Yeah.
And as far as the speed, which is intermittent throughout our community, but between Winter Road and Lindholm, we've got a couple sets of S-turns.
Winter Road, sorry?
Yeah, that's just the entrance to Metchosin on the Langford side.
On Happy Valley?
Yeah, on Happy Valley, yeah. It's a 30K through the first set of S-turns, but most traffic goes about 50 or more.
Any other questions?
No, that's all for me right now, thank you.
Councillor Gray.
Yeah, thanks very much for coming today again.
Anytime.
With the 5-2 arrangement, there's lots going on in terms of the resources, and I guess the things that, when I look through the report and the other materials that you've given us, I think of things like domestic abuse, assault, and then although we think of ourselves as being different, maybe we're not, human trafficking. You know, these are the big issues that I would be most interested in your focus.
Sure, and you know, like, surprisingly, we had, I believe it was 38 or 39 child porn files last year. No community is immune to that. There's no one community that we go, there's all sorts of deviants living in one community, not others. So yeah, those are some of the things that we're trying to focus on as well. So we also, last year we started up the special victims units, and for sex assault, it's a serious game. Nobody's immune to these types of files. So we make sure that our officers have specialized training, that these are very sensitive investigations. I want to make sure that they're the best trained and they have the best aptitude for those types of files. So again, one more thing that you realize.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so thank you very much. I echo all of these concerns. I'm also interested in the organized crime piece, similar to what Councillor Gray was talking about. Certainly more appropriate enforcement in terms of traffic safety, road safety, and of course the mental health component. I think that's all great. And then lastly, I like to see you in the community. I like when your officers come out to Metchosin and do their reports on our roads. And I like your presence because the vast majority of us are not doing anything wrong.
That's
We're
right.
just going about our normal business, and so it's really great to see you in the community, and we have noticed an increase in presence, and that's really welcome in the community.
That's fantastic. Your Worship, would you like me to, while I'm here, would you like me to open up for any more questions, or are we?
Sure. Does anybody in the public out here have any specific questions for Superintendent Todd Preston?
If you're making a list.
You have to come up to the mic, okay, Bev?
Bev Bacon, Metchosin resident, if you're making a list of jotting things down here, where Lindholm comes to Happy Valley Road is our second highest crash scene.
Whirling Road?
Lindholm
Lindholm.
at Happy Valley.
INDHOLM.
Oh, okay, I know.
And Happy Valley.
And of course, Kangaroo.
And where you're trying to get off Kangaroo to turn left to go out to Souk, you take your life in your hands.
That I actually know. Yeah.
So if you could do anything about that, it might save some lives.
Okay, anybody else?
Thank you.
Okay, with that, thank you very much for joining us again. We'll have continued dialogue. Councillor Epp will be sending you an email copying the rest of us on our priorities regarding the roads. And we'll continuing our discussion, so thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome to stay, both you and Lenora are welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but you don't have to.
There's probably a hockey game on. Thank you very much. I do appreciate
Thank you.
it. Thanks for your
Thank you.
support too.
Thanks again. Okay, we're going to return now to item number 3, public participation. Is there anybody in the public that wishes to speak? If so, mention your name and your road and come to the microphone. Wow, okay. So we'll move on to page 5 of the agenda package for the adoption of the minutes. Everybody get to page 5. Okay, so we have the council meeting minutes of April 3rd. Could I have a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Comments? Concerns? Not. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Receipt of the minutes. I'll take the first Finance Committee meeting of April 3rd. Councillor Donaldson?
Thank you. I'd just like to thank the residents who spoke passionately about the food security and the benefits of having a community garden and being able to learn about the food production and hopefully some potential farmers. There's quite a few people that are interested. And appreciate the opportunity to have shared the PowerPoint presentation as well at that meeting. So I'd like to make a motion to receive the Finance Committee meeting minutes for April 3rd, 2023.
Okay, moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Gray. Concerns? No? Comments? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. And then we have the Special Finance Committee budget meeting, April 3rd. Go ahead, Councillor Donaldson. This is page 13, everybody.
Motion to receive the Finance Committee meeting minutes of April 3rd, 2023.
Okay. Move receipt by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Gray. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Again, the Finance Committee meeting of April 13th.
And a motion to receive the Special Finance Committee meetings of April 3rd, or April 13th, sorry, this would be the budget meeting. So, okay.
Yes. Okay. Moved receipt by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Epp. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Great. And then Councillor Shukin, these are the Community Planning Committee meeting, April 17th.
Thank you, Mayor Little. And I just want to mention that at that meeting, we announced the members of the Bufferland Working Group. And we have actually had a first meeting. We're moving quickly with our mission, which is to identify and evaluate options for the future of the Bufferland. And we are going, as part of that, we will be holding a public information session on Tuesday, May 9th. And I just want to thank Councillor Donaldson for participating and helping out with the meeting that we had last Thursday. So we are moving quickly. And with that, I would like to make a motion to receive the minutes of the community planning meeting for April 17th, 2023.
Okay, moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Gray. Discussion? Not called the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, thank you. Councillor Gray.
I move receipt of the minutes of the Environment and Natural Areas Committee of April 17, 2023.
Okay. Move receipt by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Epp. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Great. And finally, the minutes from the Public Works and Protective Service Committee meeting.
Move receipt of the meeting on April 17th.
Moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Councillor Gray. Any comments, concerns? Not, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Great. Okay, moving right along to the mayor's report. This is page 29 of your agenda. First of all, we have a rising report from in-camera meeting. This is regarding the Metchosin School Gymnasium Facility Booking Service Agreement. It was moved and seconded by Councillor Gray, or Councillor Epp and Donaldson, that Council approve the Facility Booking Services Agreement with Instinct Training for a 6-month term period ending August 31st, 2023, with some modifications to the service agreement. We discussed this. We've decided this is good for the next little while. It was carried unanimously, and we just wanted the public to know that's what we're doing in the interim. Okay. So regarding the rest of my report, Councillor Epp, Councillor Donaldson and I attended a really interesting workshop. And this was a Local Leadership United Victoria workshop put on by the Community Action Initiative and the BC Centre for Disease Control. And this was all about a safer drug supply, the crisis that we're in now regarding 6 people a day dying from an overdose in BC. It was really impactful, the day. And what they've asked us to do is remember that there's lots of resources there with the CDC and also the CAI, not the CIA, CAI, and that they're willing to help if we would like to run workshops here, if we want to be proactive. One of the figures that really struck home for me, and I think it did for my colleagues as well, was that one of the age groups that is most affected is the young men who are in trades. And I think we need to move away from prohibition, move away from the stigmatization and words like addiction to users. And I think there's lots of things that we can do as a community because we are responsible for our community's health and well-being. So I wanted to throw that out there. If anybody has any comments, perhaps Councillor Donaldson and Councillor Epp wish to speak to this item. Anybody?
Sure, I'd like to make some comments.
Sure.
It was worthwhile. I was actually quite surprised how many resources there were, and maybe equally as a surprise how many are not being tapped into. My experience in the last 2 years, I've been to 3 funerals of people in their 50s that have died of some sort of addiction, which is really sad. So I came away with more information as to what resources were available and learning that it isn't age specific. A lot of troubled people turning to drugs, alcohol, whatever in their own homes, and a lot of them alone. So, and even speaking with Superintendent Preston and understanding that they're going to enhance their mental health unit in the West Shore, I think these are all positive steps for our society.
Okay. Councillor, did you?
Yeah, I thought it was really good. I was quite surprised by the really large number of professionals in almost every aspect of it, from government to people on the street, and it was very informative.
Okay. Okay, so perhaps tuck that away, that we've got opportunities if we would like to have educational campaigns here or hold workshops or trying to have some outreach with some of the people that are affected by this, which is most of us. And 85% of these overdoses are due to fentanyl, unfortunately, and unfortunately most of the people that are using don't realize that their supply could be tainted with fentanyl. It's really deadly. So, okay, so moving on to the next item. There was a lunch at our place downtown. It's always really interesting to be invited and then to participate in these lunches, serving the members of our community who are really the most vulnerable. Anyways, it was really a fun day at our place, serving Easter lunch between the Easter and Passover weekends. Yes, the province of BC, this doesn't have anything to do with the municipality, but may have something to do with our residents. So the province of BC is increasing funding for post-secondary student financing and to ease repayment program. So if you have any young people in your family or some of the people that you're in contact with who have children that are interested in post-secondary and education, there is funding available. They've increased the student financial aid as well as a different recovery system in terms of recapping those loans. Okay. Oh yes. So last week, the Government of Canada and Colwood announced a new initiative in Colwood. So I was invited by Minister Ann Kang, the mayor of Colwood, the Minister of Municipal Affairs, as well as Doug Kobayashi, the mayor of Colwood, as well as Jen Ford, the Union of BC Municipalities, or UBCM president, to attend this announcement of $6 million for a multi-use waterfront pathway in the Esquimalt Lagoon area to protect vulnerable species and provide safe passage for people within that area. And Minister Terry Beach was there to announce this. I took it upon myself to also point out the anchorages that are anchoring along our coastline, just so that he could get real world experience. We were lucky that Carol Brown from Colwood, who has been interested in this as well, so she could give more facts. So he was really interested in that, and that's why it's important for us to, well, if I can't make the meetings or these invitations, that at least one of us is there, that we can give our own Metchosin input into these announcements and congratulations. And then lastly, three of us attended the Association for Vancouver Island Coastal Communities conference. We thank the taxpayers for paying for that educational piece. And this, the AVICC is not so much the education. There was some component, but is really democracy in action. So this is a chance for communities to bring forth solutions and propose solutions in form of resolutions. And I'm proud to say that Metchosin did put two resolutions forward, one regarding old growth forests and one regarding anchorages. They both passed in part, long story, but we were pleased with the outcome. As well, I attended a pollution control site visit, not because I'm interested in garbage or pollution, just because we're sending our biosolids from the CRD to Nanaimo, and I thought it would incumbent upon me to ask those questions regarding biosolids. We had addresses from the Island Health, the provincial, the UBCM, and let's see, there was Sheila Malcolmson from the province, as well as Sonia Furstenau from the Green Party addressing AVICC. And then, yeah, that's about it for the AVICC. Did anybody that attended the conference want to add anything to that? No? No. Okay, that's fine. Okay, with that, that is the mayor's report. Moving on to page 33, and this is under business arising. These are the Finance Committee recommendations from April 3rd. Councillor Donaldson.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that council approve in principle the stewardship of the land covered in brambles behind the tennis court at the Metchosin school site for a community garden pilot project.
Second.
Okay.
Or do we want to do both?
You want to do both at the same time?
Sure. Yes.
Yeah.
And that council requests that as the community garden group expands, they explore options for the use of the land on the Metchosin school site along the fence line behind the bramble patch to the fence at the back of the field.
I would second that.
So moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Shukin. Comments? No? I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, go ahead.
Just had one question. We only touched briefly on the question of providing some seed money to get this thing off the ground, and I wonder if there's any appetite for that at all, or if we'll just go ahead. I'm just not sure if things will happen with a little bit of financial help. It's on our property after all.
Yeah, Councillor Johnson.
So historically, when this initiated, which was about 5 years ago in the Health and Communities Committee, the agreement with council at the time was it would not be taxpayers' dollars at all. That this would be a user group, so that people would have to get organized, become a registered society or something similar. That way they'd be able to fundraise, open a bank account, be able to acquire insurance, which they would need to have for the district because it is on district lands. So it was not to be any cost to taxpayers.
Okay. Okay. And they can always come back to and ask. Yeah.
I guess I was just thinking about there's so many positive attributes you described, and it seemed to be some things are worth investing in, but I take your point that there's not the interest, then fair enough.
Okay. Okay. So with that, I'll call the question on the two motions. This is from the April 24th meeting. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Great. So this is business arriving from the minutes of the council meeting, the Community Planning Committee recommendations. Councillor Shukin.
Thanks, Mayor Little. I would move that council write a letter to the Honourable Ravi Kahlon, Minister of Housing, respectfully advising of council's concerns regarding the new provincial government's housing initiative, and that the letter express council's interest in working with the province on this issue. So moved.
Okay. This is moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Just continuing with the motions here, that council reach out informally to our neighboring rural municipalities, MLA, Mitzi and the CRD to explore other opportunities and stay active and informed on the BC government's new housing initiative.
Okay, moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. The rezoning application for 4409 William Head Road.
Thank you.
On this one, if I might, I'm just going to excuse myself. I'm not sure that I have a conflict of interest on the agenda item. I may have interest in common with other electors generally, but I do own property immediately next door to 4409 William Head Road, the subject property being discussed, and I'm a registered owner of the community hall at 4401 William Head Road. I think it's possible the decision on the subject property could have an impact on its value and the value of adjacent properties. In time, I'll get further advice about a conflict. In the meantime, in order to avoid a perception of conflict, I'll recuse myself.
Okay.
Thanks.
Don't go far.
No.
Okay.
Thank you. I will move that council does not require the property owner of 4409 William Head Road to host a public information meeting, and that council direct staff to refer the application to internal, including the Agricultural Select Advisory Committee and external agencies for comment, and that council requests staff bring back the proposal and applicable land use bylaw amendment for consideration. Excuse me, and further that council attend a site visit of the property. So moved.
Okay, moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor F. Discussion? Not. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Great. Thank you very much.
We'll wait for Councillor Gray to come back. Yeah. Thanks. And I would move that council approve the use of district facilities during the North American Amateur Radio Field Day, June 25th and 26th, 2023.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Gray. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Great. So this is business arising from the meeting of April 24th, the Environment and Natural Areas Committee recommendations. Councillor Gray.
Yeah, this is that issue of tanker traffic risks, and I move that council approve the attached draft letter on tanker traffic risks with proposed amendments from the April 17, 2023 Environmental and Natural Areas Committee meeting, and that council direct staff to send a letter to the Honourable George Hayman, Minister of Environment and Climate Change Strategy.
Okay, this is moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Discussion. You've got sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I can just say that I guess the letter speaks for itself, but the purpose was to advise the province of our concerns about tanker traffic risks, given spill response teams are not permitted to attend spill under certain conditions quite regularly on our coasts. And following the request of the Environment Standing Committee, several edits were made to a letter that you can see there, and I worked on it with Councillor Shukin.
Great. Okay, more discussion. A point that I had was we're reminded at the advocacy meetings that we attend, the LGLA, the AVSCC, the UBCM, that we have to be really careful what we foray into other governments' jurisdictions. And I was wondering, with respect, if we could add something at the end, before thank you for your attention to this matter, something like, we welcome your collaboration on this effort. What do you think to that?
Super.
In terms of wanting to work with the federal government, with the provincial government, Transport Canada's the federal province. What do you think to that? Would that be palatable for everybody?
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the idea here is that we know the provincial government's concerned about some of these the issues on the shoreline, particularly the property that they own, and I think that's a terrific addition.
Okay, good. Councillor Epp, is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay. So with that, I'll call the question. All in favor of the letter and the overall motion to that effect? That's okay with everybody? Okay. Call the question again. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Great. Thank you. So moving to the reports for action, we have the KPMG draft consolidated financial statements year ending December 2022.
Shall I make a motion?
Yeah.
Council approve the audited consolidated financial statements year ended December 31st, 2023.
Okay.
As presented.
Okay. This is moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Shukin. First of all, I wanted to thank staff for the report and for their work on the District Metchosin financials. We heard from the auditors that we're in fine, our house is in order, which is good. There was no outstanding comments. There were some comments made, which was really great. And I'd like to thank staff for their work. Thank you very much. Okay, with that, anybody else have any comments regarding this is on page 41, 42 of your agenda package? We've had quite a bit, 2.5 hours of this, so I think everybody's pooped. Okay, with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Okay, reports for information. This is on page 67 of the agenda package. This is the first is the West Shore RCMP annual year-end report. We heard from Superintendent Todd Preston. Did anybody else want to comment on the report itself? If not, I'll receive a motion to receive the report.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor F. Discussions, comments?
I would just,
Yeah, go
Madam,
ahead.
thanks. I would just say it's a pretty sound report. I mean, there's a good dose of figures, up-to-date figures, seemingly, and interesting stories about how the RCMP is enforcing law here. So, yeah, good report.
Okay. Anybody else?
I just want to say, even before I've gotten a seat at this table, how much I have always enjoyed the reports from the RCMP when they've come prior to Mr. Preston. It was Mr. Showen, I think his name was. And always personable with the residents of the community and very easy to read reports. So it's good to have those kinds of relationships. And I also want to extend a thank you for Councillor Epp bridging that relationship as well over the last years. It's been really useful.
And if you haven't attended your opportunity for a ride along, it is eye-opening to say the least. So I encourage you to do that. Okay, so we've got a motion to receive. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Okay, and the District of Metchosin Public Communication Report on page 97. Okay, so we have this, you see this every month?
Move receipt.
Moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Comments? No? Okay. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And we have the Metchosin Building Inspection Department permit revenue year to date on page 99. Any comments, concerned? If not, I'll take a motion to receive.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Gray. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And moving on to bylaws.
You just have the number D, the early boarding update.
Oh, yes. Top of the page.
Oh. Awfully sorry. Okay, I've gone too quickly. Sorry about that. This is the early Ford FRV8 Club Fords and Friends update. Staff verbal. Thank you.
So I met with Mr. Summers, I remember 2 or 3 weeks ago. The plan is coming along great. So even though, as he's indicated when he presented council earlier, that they're trying to limit the number of cars to attend the show just because of logistics. So there's been little to no advertising, and yet he's gotten probably, I want to say like 50% of the spots already filled up. So it's looking very, very exciting. So at the meeting, we just discussed logistics like parking and also setting up a couple of vendor tents, and his idea is to set them up in the tennis courts, use the tennis courts, and of course set up the vintage cars in the field. Other logistics we talked about is making sure it happens is for him to have access to power and outside, so they can set up speakers and things like that. Also consideration has been given and will be done so that the speakers are directed away from, I can't remember what, but it's going to be directed away from one of the groups that may be impacted by it. Sorry, I just don't recall the detail on the top of my head, but so, he's given a lot of consideration to minimizing any kind of interruption during the event. What else we talked about? That was really it. Mr. Summers just wanted to give us an update on how the planning is going. The one thing I did remind him that the parking lot at the church is available for any carpooling or shuttle bus, and just encourage them to use that, although I do realize that that's on a Sunday. That the event's happening, so depending on the timing, that parking lot may be full. That was it.
Okay, so there might be some questions from the councillor. I know. Okay, go ahead.
Thanks,
okay.
Mayor.
Councillor Shukin.
Thanks very much for you, Ms. Tarnowski. What's the date of the event?
The date that he proposed,
July
which is
14th?
July 6th. No, the 2nd, 3rd, just a Sunday. It's the 16th. Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
The original date that was proposed.
I hate to ask questions that might reveal proprietary information, but did we settle on a rent and a damage deposit, or?
We did.
Okay.
Did? Or?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
So it's the same as what we're paying at Guadalupe.
Okay.
Okay. And I still have some, while other people are thinking of questions, I still have some concerns regarding our loos at the school, because there could be lots of people there. for the day, and I would prefer that they use the porta potties if they could have those, because the septic system isn't really stable, I wouldn't say. That they
So it's, where's the work, so the preference is, if it's at all possible, not have to rent porta potties because of cost.
Yeah.
So there will be additional staff there to make sure that bathrooms are clean on a regular basis instead of just, being like a mess. We also discuss, again, conversation will have to continue to use the bathrooms at on the Macca side of the building, instead of just the school side. So that it's still, Mrs. Summers did say his preference is if he did have to rent the porta potties, just because of the cost concerns. That's his preference, but it's not absolutely out of the question.
I still think that a couple of porta potties would be really great for that site, for that day. I would suggest that. Yeah. Councillor Donaldson.
Yeah, they're about $100 a day to rent, and that's what we do for Metchosin Day as well. So it's not taxing into our public washrooms that we have so much here, although this is a different, I think it's a treatment center too, but it's a little bit different system. The one at the school has always been quite sensitive, I think. Yeah. I have a few other questions.
Sure, go ahead.
Are they having food vendors? Because I know they did approach the Scouts and it didn't sound like they're...
Yeah, so the Scouts will not be able to do that, but so they will be bringing the Lions from Central Sandwich, the group that did the food last year.
Okay. And all the neighbors will be notified because of the PA system. So you got the farm next door with all the...
I'll make sure that kids in that.
Equestrians there. And how about the traffic control?
They will be providing that as well.
Are you sure? Because
that's what they said, yeah.
Okay, because they had actually contacted SAR, and one of the members of SAR was asking me about it, and I suggested they should probably look into their insurance policy, because traffic control on a public road is critical, which is another reason why Metchosin Day hired professional certified traffic people.
Okay. Any other comments? No? Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you. Okay, and before bylaws, we're going to move on to the correspondence. We have a late item. This is the item from Bev Bacon regarding 4409 William Head Road. She makes a number of suggestions here regarding this property, and you've had a chance to read it as well. Okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry. I forgot about you. Do you want to just excuse yourself while we...
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Were there any comments or concerns regarding the information of Bev Bacon's? No? Okay, I'll take a motion to receive the correspondence.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Sukin, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councillor Donaldson, do you want to ask him to come back in?
Mayor Little, I just want to, did we add the contract award, this washroom renovation?
That's to 12A.
Other business.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
we've got that for 12A. Thank you. Okay, moving to page 101. This is the bylaw 682, District of Metchosin Code of Conduct bylaw. Okay, so we've got the bylaw here. We're seeing it for the second time. As I mentioned before, the Code of Conduct involves mainly 4 different items: integrity, accountability, respect, and leadership and collaboration. And this piece is actually from our legal counsel, modified slightly by the District of Metchosin staff. So I was wondering if I could have a motion for first reading, and then we'll discuss it. We don't have to do a second reading this evening, but we can give first reading of the bylaw 682. Okay.
I'll move the first reading of bylaw 682.
Okay. We're going to, this is a motion for bylaw 682, the first reading. Could I have a second, if that's palatable? For the,
So moved, or so seconded?
seconded by Council Gray. Okay, let's discuss this. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Shukin.
Thanks. I am, thanks very little. I'm trying to go back to recall grade 10 social studies and the whole process of first, second, third reading. I'm comfortable with moving too far ahead with this because I feel like I just have not had time to digest it properly. I know we've had it for a number of weeks, but there's just been a lot before us and I haven't had time to sink my teeth into. I do have a number of concerns with certain sections, but I feel like we would all benefit from discussion of the full document and giving ourselves time and the headspace to do so.
Okay.
So
the reason why I've asked for the motion for the first reading is just so we can discuss it, because we can't make any amendments without having that motion on the table. We don't have to make all the amendments this evening, but just so we can get it on the table to discuss some of the amendments or address some of the concerns or comments that you might have. Okay, so why don't we start at the top, if that's okay with everybody, and then we can go through, perhaps we can go through some of this evening, and then we can continue at a future meeting. The province has said that we must consider a code of conduct within 6 months of the inauguration. We have actually fulfilled that obligation because we've already signed a code of conduct. We're amending a code of conduct. I'm not really worried about the timing. What I'm more worried about is that rather than just assigning it and tabling it or shelving it, that we were told at the CRD table and by legal counsel that the process is very important. The process of talking about this, workshopping it, letting your colleagues know your concerns, and then moving forward is as important as the document itself. Okay, so with that in mind, would you like to start, Councillor Shukin, on some of it, or where would you like to go?
Sure. I guess I had a number of concerns with sections 8, 9, and 10, and 8 to 12. Not even concerns, but some questions. If you look at section 8, a council member shall not issue instructions or directions to staff regarding district business except through the CAO or the appropriate department manager. No real concerns with that, but I did notice that there were a few other ways of phrasing this that seemed to allow for some control, but also at the same time maybe responding to unique circumstances. So for example, Nanaimo says council member must direct inquiries regarding departmental issues or questions to the CAO, the general manager, or the department director of the appropriate department, and refrain from contacting staff unless the communication is minor and of a day-to-day operational nature. I know we don't have those positions, but it just struck me as another way of phrasing this. Another thing from Maple Ridge, members should involve themselves in matters of administration except where council or the CAO has approved the involvement or where there is legislative authority for it. So there just seemed to be extra room to allow for engagement, but still some controls in place.
Okay. So. Yeah, let's talk about this. I also had some concerns regarding this because I'm here all the time. I need to meet with the Deputy Corporate Officer regarding the agendas. That's on a routine basis. I do liaise with the Deputy Corporate Officer regarding my calendar, and that's not directly going through the CAO, as well as sort of day-to-day operations. So I'd like to see this less strict, with very similar to what you were talking about with the city of Nanaimo, actually. Yeah. Anybody else have any comments regarding this one? Go ahead.
Yeah, this is a really full document compared to what we had. I think we had 10 very lean sections on ours, which are like 2 sentences each. And so that was all on one side of the paper, where this is, I don't know if it's 20 pages, but it's pretty full.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a lot to take in. It's very interesting reading. I have also, over the last few weeks, been looking a little bit at some other ones. I would actually like to work through this in a workshop if possible, similarly to what we've done like with our strategic plan. There are some elements of legal in here that I wouldn't be comfortable discussing at the council table, so that would pose some challenges, I think. Yeah, I'd like to work through this as a team with less pressure, more time, understanding what each one is, working with our interim CAO on that too.
Okay. Okay. Ms. Tarnowski, do you want to come to the microphone?
That's a really great idea, Councillor Donaldson, but just as a reminder to everybody that discussion on bylaws have to be done in open meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So where we have our strategic plan discussion in camera, we're not able to do that in camera, discussion on this bylaw, or any bylaws.
Okay, so I was just wondering, Ms. Tarnowski, if a council member has some discomfort with some of the items, shall I liaise with that, or shall we liaise with that council regarding those, and we can handle it that way?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Councillor Donaldson? Right now? No? Okay. Did you want to, who else? Councillor Donaldson, Shukin, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry there. Section 9 I do have a concern with, and that may kind of wane a little bit after some discussion, but I did want to point out Section 10, or sorry, Section 11. So this section reads, all requests for opinions from government agencies, lawyers, or other experts will be conducted through the CAO and not by individual members. The CAO will report all such opinions to council as a whole. I can see part of the sense of that. However, it seems very restrictive to me. The one thing I do want to go or mention, I think there needs to be some option for another channel to legal counsel, especially legal counsel. And again, I pick up a section, I believe that came from Nanaimo. So the mayor is the head and chief executive officer of the city and has a statutory responsibility to provide leadership to the council and to provide general direction to municipal officers respecting city policies, programs, and other directions of the council as set out in Part 5 of the community charter. To me, there's a place for that consideration in Section 11 and not cutting out the potential of the mayor going especially to legal counsel. Again, I believe that there has to be some sort of control on that, but it cannot be, I would be really hesitant to approve anything that is this restrictive. And same too with seeking opinions from not so much government agencies, but other experts. So for example, if we wanted to rethink our approach to bullfrog eradication, or I wanted to get a sense of how live swales may work, I mean, you would maybe go to an expert on those. And so the Section 11 says all requests for opinions from or other experts that's that's kind of eliminated unless you go through the CAO.
Mhm.
Not necessarily a bad thing, but again, it's quite restrictive, and I think there's probably a way of again, opening it up a little bit without losing a sense of control over it, through the council, that is.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Okay, great. Regarding that one as well, I did have some concerns regarding that. Last year, we met with Ministry of Agriculture representatives. It wasn't to do with anybody else's portfolio except for the agricultural portfolio, and that's why I was involved. That didn't involve the CAO nor the mayor. And we reported out on that when we reported about the agricultural forum, but we certainly weren't prevented, or we didn't have to go through the CAO for that, as well as there is specific circumstances where a mayor would want to reach out to get legal advice concerning potentially the CAO. For instance, the CAO can't advocate and ask questions on their own behalf, and that would be appropriate for the mayor to reach out. So that this sort of 8 to 12, I believe, are not in the original package that was put back in there from the previous code of conduct, and so I wouldn't be in favor of 8, 9, 11. I did want to ask about number 10, though. Ms. Tarnowski, I was just wondering about the intent of number 10. This is more to do with staff, right?
Not particularly just to staff, but to staff or any advisory committee board members. So it's really letting if we want to speak specifically about the committee members, it's just letting them fulfill their duties according to the terms of reference. And it's the same as well for staff. So it's really just letting those groups mentioned in number 10 to conduct their duties according to their terms of reference or without council involvement.
Okay. Okay. Councillor Shukin.
Sure. I'm sorry, I did want to jump to another section.
Thank you.
Okay, so section 9, before, during, or after a procurement process, a council member shall not issue instructions or directions to a contractor, tender, proponent, consultant, or other service provider. Outside of a council committee meeting, a council member shall not communicate with a tender or proponent regarding the subject matter of the procurement. So the second part of this section, I can understand. It seems to be prior to the selection of the proponent or the winning tender or whatever. Totally understood. But again, I believe that there should be some room for council from time in special circumstances to connect directly with contractor, tender, proponent, or consultant, especially post procurement. And so, for example, the peanut consultants. To me, that the decision to move ahead with that service was really a political decision, and the shaping of the survey, the direction of the provisions for adaptation. I think those might have been some points that one of us might have had direct engagement with. So I just wouldn't want to see that potential eliminated. Yeah.
With number 9.
Yeah, so the intent of number 9 is just strictly about the procurement process. So because the procurement process, it's a administrative process in terms of evaluating all the proposals. So we're trying to not duplicate having staff do the assessment process and then having council members having interaction, communication with the proponent, particularly before or during the whole process. So we could change the wording to say it's not strictly preventing council members from having discussion with the successful proponent after the fact, but it's really trying to protect the whole process of RP.
Yeah. Okay, no, and I can understand that. It would need to be rewarded though. Okay.
So if I'm reading, you write, the first sentence is okay. Not to be interfering with instructions or directions to the contractor, but the communication should be allowed. Is that what you're, or are you saying with the PINA consulting, for instance, the environment, natural areas,
Well,
councillor was able to give instruction on that?
Yeah. What Mr. Tarnowski has raised a great point, and the way of phrasing it is during a procurement process, I can see council butts out entirely. And potentially even after, if, proponent comes back and says, oh, why didn't I win this? The feedback should be given from staff.
Mm-hmm.
But the way it is written here does not seem to me to allow that post-award engagement directly with council, and you may need that.
Okay.
So, yeah, and I went over this one again and again, and that's what, it strikes me that is what the wording, if you stick to the meaning, that is what it indicates, no contact.
Okay. Go ahead, councillor.
Well, I actually don't really agree with changing too many of these. Just in general, I believe that these things should go through the CAO because that ensures that all of council will get the same information rather than having individuals able to contact various agencies or various people and then come back with that information, but maybe not getting the whole picture. And I believe that the information is streamed through the CAO, and that councillors work with the CAO to form opinions or get information. That is the way the procedure should go.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else wish to speak to that? No? Okay. So moving along to other areas. Point number 13. I just wanted to say, did we want to define time to time? Did we want to say yearly, annually? Or just leave it like that? Is that okay? Okay. See no other, go ahead.
I think we do have something on our terms of reference about reviewing from year to year. It might be worth putting something like that in there for the advisory groups.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'll check that. Let's say, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think what that's referring to is that if in fact the District of Metchosin Council Procedure Bylaw number 507 was amended or replaced from time to time, then we'd act with decorum in accordance with it. If it's not amended or replaced from time to time, then we wouldn't be doing it. So it just meant
wording.
Yeah, it's just meant to be any old time that it happens, pay attention.
Okay, we might want to reword that. Okay, anything else on that page? On item number 16, I thought it would be a good policy, and maybe it's just something for us to remember with the next election. I don't think it's appropriate for the council to be making decisions between the writ period. By the time the writ is dropped and the vote, I don't think it's appropriate, and many councils decided to stand back from making especially substantive decisions during that period. And I don't know whether we need it here, but I think we should be cognizant of that going forward. Okay, so keep going. Keep going, keep going. What about number 20, during the campaign period? Ms. Tarnowski, could you explain number D, the social media piece, that the campaign period, a council member shall not
So that's really just for clarification that any opinion expressed by the council members, it is their opinion and is not expressed as seen as by opinion of the individual as a councillor as opposed to individual.
Okay. Okay. And then number E.
So this is just saying that the council member will not request staff work on any campaign-related matters during office hours.
Okay. Go ahead.
It's interesting, 20D, so council member will not use social media and internet resources such as Twitter, Facebook, Instagram in the council member's personal name unless those accounts include a disclaimer that they are not district funded and do not reflect district policy. Fair enough, but that's interesting for all of us who are on a bit of, I think we're all on some form of social media, and having that disclaimer at the bottom, it's, if you miss it once or you breach the policy, so I think it's fair enough, but it's, it does involve a little bit more of logistical thought when you're using social media, so.
Okay. What about number 21? Council members and their staff may take unpaid leave. I don't have staff. I don't know if you have staff. Who has staff here? I'd like to know. Maybe we can take out the and their staff because we don't have any.
I think that's for provincial elections or something, maybe.
Maybe. Okay. Conflicts of interest. Item number 22. How about if we go to the outside activities and business relations section, and then we can pass the first reading of that up to that point, and then we'll pick it up and discuss again. How does that sound? I've heard a couple of councillors wanting more time, wanting more discussion. So I thought this might be a good way of doing this, chunking it out a bit, allowing for that process. How does that sound?
Could we talk about what passing first reading means once we get to that section you mentioned?
Sure. Okay. Yeah, so I was talking to page 110, outside activities and business relations, just above point number 26. We can talk about it then. So shall we continue until then? Yep. Sure. Okay. So where are we here? Okay, conflicts of interest, number 22. I think a lot of this is self-explanatory. It explains pecuniary interest, that conflicts of bias. As was shown tonight, a conflict of interest was declared before any conversations, which was appropriate. And this is in accordance with Section 100 of the Community Charter and 101. Yeah, what about 24B? Determine whether it's necessary to seek independent legal advice at their own cost, except where the CAO approves the cost if concerned about the validity of the affected bylaw or resolution with respect to any situation which may result in a conflict of interest. So this would be a council decision anyways, right? It wouldn't be a individual council member and the CAO. It'd be a council resolution. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about how this goes here, and maybe I'm not connecting some dots, but okay, so in respect of each matter before council, the council member shall, and then jump to 24B, determine whether it is necessary to seek independent legal advice, fair enough, at their own cost, except where the chief administrative officer approves the cost if concerned about the validity of an affected bylaw or resolution. So I guess I'm okay with Well, it's interesting because the decision maker here about cost, legal cost, is the CAO as opposed to council. And then it's linked to the validity of an effective bylaw or resolution. I'm assuming that a resolution, sorry, I'm missing something, I'm sure, but a resolution would also include a motion. Okay, I will stop because I'm missing something.
Ms. Tarnowski, go ahead.
So it's just, the first part of 24B is saying that it's the councillor's decision if they decide when they're faced with a potential conflict of interest that they wish to seek legal advice on their own. So it's not going through the district's lawyer saying, you know, I want to go and seek my own legal advice independent of the district's legal counsel.
I think that's clear. That's what the first part, and then it goes on to say except.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, except if I think Councillor Gray.
I think that's a circumstance where, let's say the councillor doesn't seek legal advice and the CAO thinks, my golly, you're all tied up in this thing. I think you've got a conflict of interest. So then the CAO has a word with the councillor, says, look, tell you what, you haven't taken advice, but it's because of the importance of the integrity of the council here, I'm going to go with you to seek legal advice on this and just make sure that everything is fine. So I think that's when the CAO is sort of having a discussion with the specific councillor. That's how I read it. Because it's always an individual decision. It's not a council's decision whether you have a conflict or not. And so this is sort of CEO helping and nudging and saying, okay, listen, let's get some advice. I believe that what it is. I mean, it's been put together by our legal counsel, so we can ask that specifically, but I believe that's what that's about.
We can certainly reword it and take it away and say, my understanding is that it's not an issue with individual council members obviously seeking their own legal advice, but it's more of the second part of just getting clarity on what the second part of 24B works. Mm-hmm. Is that correct? Mm-hmm.
It is partly, and I don't discount at all what Councillor Gray is saying. I think that's a situation where it may apply, but I also feel there's deeper implications with this particular section that I have some questions about it, but yeah, no, the second part would be good to clarify, but there's, like I say, there's some other things going on. And it's interesting too, because all of council, there may be situations where all of council is very concerned that one member's conflict of interest is clarified. So, it's...
Right, so in that case, as in past practice, and that's something that'll definitely go through the district's legal counsel, saying here's the situation where most of council, majority of council has a concern about this particular potential conflict of interest. So,
Okay. Item 25. If the council member believes that they may have or may reasonably or be perceived to have a conflict of interest with respect to a matter in a council or committee meeting, the council member shall. Do you have any issues with this? Notifying the mayor or the chair of the meeting prior to the matter being considered, refraining from discussing the matter with any council member publicly or privately, that's according to the Local Government Act, and leave the meeting room if the matter is discussed and not returned until discussion has ended or voting. Seems pretty clear to me. Okay. Okay, so, go ahead.
I have sort of a subsidiary question about it, and that's just the curious situation when we have public participation. So you don't know who's going to come up and speak. We're not really discussing at that point. Yeah. And I'm just curious, that's a different question that's down here, but I would like to get clear about that.
I think it's a good point, but I think it was appropriate what you did tonight and excuse yourself because you don't want to put yourself into a position or perceived conflict of interest. This did come up earlier in the year with another item, and we knew that there were a number of potential speakers, so we lined them up at the beginning. That council member recused themselves, and there's ways to handle it. And I think if we go slow and measured and try and be equitable and fair with each other, we'll be able to manage this. Okay, so I have a question for our Deputy Corporate Officer, Miss Hanson. With regards to the first reading, so if we pass first reading at this, having only looked up to 26, and we've got some modifications to make in some of the items specifically from, what was it, 8 to 12. So how do we do that? Would you like us to take a vote on that first reading, and then we'll pick it up? Because we should always make, as I understand it, changes in before the second reading, right?
It has to be given first reading first, and then you can amend the bylaw after first readings.
Okay. Okay.
So if you want to give first reading tonight, and then you can send the amendments back to staff to bring back, or we can just bring it back and you can pick up.
Okay. Okay, so then would you like a vote on that, or yes. Okay, so we do have this first reading motion on the table. What I would suggest is we have staff amend those according to what was discussed, what was identified as problematic, and then we'll pick up where we left off. But that doesn't mean you can't look back on what we've already done, of course, and make sure it's palatable for everybody. How's that sound? Okay? Okay? Okay, so with that, I'll take a motion on the first reading, and I can't remember, I'm sorry, who, was it Councillor Epp?
I moved it.
Councillor Epp moved the first reading of the Code of Conduct bylaw. It was seconded by Councillor Gray. Okay, with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks, Ms. Tarnowski. I appreciate it.
I think next one's I'm up, so I could just
Yes.
stay
Did you want to go ahead? So this is the staff report, page 133, on the 2023-2027 5-year financial plan and tax rate bylaw.
So, the two bylaws that you see in front of you. The first one is the financial plan bylaw, which is also the budget bylaw. And the second one is the tax rate bylaw, which will set the rates for taxes for 2023. So you'll see in your package on page 136. So we went through an extensive period discussing the budget in detail, but when you approve the budget, this is what you're approving based on what's on page 136, which is the budget in summary. So as Lenora had mentioned to you earlier, is you'll see that there's two, I don't want to say version, I guess two formats to present the budget. And the reason that it's done, particularly the one at the bottom that says the PSAP accounting format, the portion at the bottom, the format is done specifically just for the auditors. So what I can tell you right now, the version at the bottom, that's called the PSAP version, and the version up top, community charter, is the same as what you approved, that we've discussed in the past. So the difference is the community charter portion up top, it's 8 million as opposed to 6 million that you saw in your budget package. It's because when we're discussing tax rate increases, which is what we've done for the past 4 months, it does not show you or take into consideration it transfers from reserves. We're just talking specifically how much funding shortfall we need, and that's how much funding we need to raise from taxes. So that's why that number on your previous financial package is different from what you see in this bylaw table. So it's really just, in short, it's just different presentation of the same information. Okay.
Okay.
And the reason that, and just a little bit to add as well, the order of the bylaws, is we have to approve the financial plan bylaw first, and then followed by the tax rate bylaw. So there's a reason why we present it in that order.
Okay. And so the request is that we do the first, second, and third readings of the financial plan 2023-2027 bylaw 683 first. So should we start there? Okay. So who would like to would you? Go ahead.
Sure. I'd like to move that council give first, second, and third reading to the financial plan of 2020.
I think we have to.
Sorry?
If you could do first, and then we'll have a seconder.
Oh,
Then, that's okay. We'll do it first, we'll have a seconder, we'll take a vote, and then we'll go to the second reading. Yeah.
Okay. First is trying to speak.
It just is a lot of speaking.
Okay. That council give first reading to the financial plan of 2023-2027, bylaw number 683.
Okay, moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Epp. Any concerned comments? No, go ahead.
Well, I did want to make some concerns. Should I do them now or?
If the motion's on the table,
Certainly.
go ahead.
Well, I want to share some prepared remarks. This is an important occasion, and I don't think it would be a surprise to any of you if I voted against the budget, but instead I'll vote with you. I commit to do my best to support our mayor and this council to get the best results we can achieve with this spending plan. I'm disappointed that after making a climate and biodiversity declaration, we did not see our way to considering any climate readiness funding, new climate readiness funding for the budget. We didn't get any funds for creek monitoring or money set aside for the bufferland stormwater management. No project manager, no added funds for engineering. The Finance Committee set aside recommendations from a road consultant, and so this budget doesn't add any new funds this year for the culvert replacements and upgrades, and I worry about flooding. The budget does provide lots of money for lawyers, but we're burning through those funds like drunken sailors. To be successful, we need to work together and tighten our approach in seeking legal counsel. We need to listen more and follow their advice we receive with greater care. The Finance Committee recommended cuts to thousands of dollars of public work services provided in past to our volunteer groups. Those cuts are reflected in this budget. The committee recommended cuts to the fire department community promotion budget. Perhaps more worrisome is that the Finance Committee has recommended tens of thousands of dollars of cuts from public works that will reduce our flexibility to respond to urgent requirements that may come up this year, and most certainly will reduce our ability to fund one-time projects next year. Well, how so? These line items are a big source of our annual surplus that would roll into next year for our one-time projects. And I'm not happy because I think the recommendations are not so prudent and not so fiscally responsible as I would have liked. And then what I didn't want to include in the budget was included to the tune of a 5% tax increase. And that, of course, I'm talking about the funds to hire a full-time CAO. I think we do much better, given our small size, to combine the roles of CAO and CFO in one person, as was done with Ms. Lisa Erlacher and is being done now with Ms. Sue Linternowski. We don't need a top-heavy bureaucracy with such a small staff in a small municipality like ours. To me, simply, it's not worth the cost. And make no mistake, though, we're getting lots of work done under the existing arrangement. I'm worried the CAO decision and other staffing pressures will likely push our tax increase next year to 14% just to maintain existing services. Not a pretty picture. Also, as you know, I would have preferred that we smooth the increase by accounting for the full FD costs this year for the staff, and that would have made our job next year so much easier. But it's not all doom and gloom. We have a ton of time now to start planning next year's budget. I'm looking forward to that. I do love that we're continuing the famous, celebrated, and ongoing Metchosin tradition of being debt-free. This is so important when we hear rumblings of amalgamation in the wind. Being debt-free makes us distinct from the other municipalities in the CRD. And we're a low-tax jurisdiction. We'll be a low-tax jurisdiction even with this budget. I want to thank Councillor Donaldson and Ms. Ternowski and our finance staff for all the work and the worry of getting our first budget over the finish line. We seem to address policing costs properly, Thanks there to previous mayors and council for their foresight in establishing the policing reserve. We are leaning heavily on now to smooth the tax increases. And thanks to Mayor Little for the work that she did, getting us to a good decision on the police arrangement. Thank you. And thanks all for agreeing the funds to hire a bufferland hydrologist. We increased our staff training and development. I'm proud of that. Sharon and I fought hard to get the funds to fill our vacant administrative assistant position. And thank you, Mayor Little, Councillor Shukin, and Councillor Donaldson for coming through on that one. And I like that we decided finally on a brand new single axle truck. Thank you, Jay. Sound decision making. I wonder if Professor Akerlof, who wrote The Making of Lemons, ever made lemonade himself from the lemons. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I take offense to the drunken sailor's comment, but we'll leave it at that. Does anybody have any other comments that they'd like to make regarding the first reading of the budget?
I just want to say that I appreciate all the time and energy that everyone at this table actually deliberated, the long hours and the discussions and the debate, that I think collectively we actually keep this budget together, not separately.
Okay, so with that, I'll call the question on the first reading. Call the question, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, second reading.
Okay, that council give second reading to the financial plan of 2023-2027 bylaw number 683.
Okay.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Shukin. That's okay. Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Third reading.
And that council give third reading to the financial plan of 2023-2027 bylaw number 683.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Gray. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, now moving on to the tax rate bylaw of 2023. That's bylaw 684. It's okay, just a sec.
I'm fine.
You're okay? Okay. So we're now moving on, now that we've done the bylaw 683, we're moving on to bylaw the tax rate as indicated. Did you want to go ahead with that one as well, Finance Chair?
Sure. That council give first reading to the tax rate of 2023 bylaw number 684.
Okay. So this is the tax rate. If you look on page 137 of the council package, this is the bylaw 684. And for the members of the audience, this is that the council of the district of Metchosin in open meetings assembled enacted the following. So there was 4, I believe, well, actually 5 points here. Yeah. Did you want to speak to that?
Sure. Just a couple of things to point out for the benefit of council and the public. As the first part is the penalty on paid taxes. So in Metchosin, the bylaw is 5% at the day after the tax due date. So for 2023, it will be after July 4th. July 4th is the due date. And any balances after that, which is August 7th, will receive the remaining 5% penalty. And another point that I'd like to point out as well is if you look on Schedule A, you may be wondering why there's some requisitions that are missing from that table. So those being BC Assessment, MFA, which is the Municipal Finance Authority, Transit, as well as School. The reason those are not on there is because those rates, we do not set those rates. So those agencies, besides the fact we haven't received them, those agencies, when we receive correspondence from them, they actually tell us here's the rate. So council has no discretion at all in setting the rates. Whereas in columns A to F that you see in Schedule A, these are actually the rates that you are setting as a council, which you have discretion to set. That's why you only have 6 columns here, as opposed to all the requisitions that we collect on behalf of the other agencies. Okay.
second the motion. I'll second the motion if you like.
So the motion's on the table. This is the first reading by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Gray. Did you want to ask any questions, Councillor Gray?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Oh, okay. Anybody else? No? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of the first reading? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, that council gives second reading to the tax rate of 2023, bylaw numbers 684.
Okay, moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Shukin. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay.
And that council gives third reading to the tax rate of 2023, bylaw number 684.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Gray. Concerns? Okay, if not, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. So with that, that's carried. Thank you very much, Mr. Tarnowski.
Quick question.
Yes, go ahead. Yes.
Mr. Tarnowski. Is this now advertised? Or we just go to the next step?
So, no, so the next step is adoption on May 1st.
Okay.
So once it's adopted, then we can advertise, but rest assured we're working hard away,
Okay.
getting tax notices ready, so.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Okay. And moving on to other business. This is the other late item, pink, that you have. This is the new business regarding the award of a contract, Metchosin washroom and, Metchosin school washroom and kitchen renovations, request for proposals. The recommendation is that council consider awarding the contract for the Metchosin school washroom and kitchen renovation RFP to Ketcher Projects and Construction Limited in the amount of $392,350. Okay, so that is the recommendation. Let's have a discussion regarding this. We had 3 responses to the RFP. Rolling Tides Constructions, Ketcher Projects and Constructions Limited, and Trail Developments Limited here. So we were obligated to discuss this at an open meeting, and I would like a discussion regarding this. And what are your recommendations? Who wants to start? Councillor Eck.
Just that there's a note about a staff report here, so can we hear from?
Oh yeah,
Ms. Tarnowski
absolutely.
first?
I don't have anything more to add to the report besides what's been in the report. So we received 3 bids, as has been indicated. We've had to do adjustments for a couple of them because they included items that were not specifically requested in the RFP. So just for clarity and ease of comparing bids, apple with apple, so we've had to adjust a couple of the bids as indicated in the report, those being the first and third submissions. So what we'll compare is the second part of the report with the adjusted amounts are what I would say compare apples to apples for the 3 submissions.
Okay. Okay, great. So I had a question, Ms. Tarnowski, just a moment, perhaps Councillor Epp can answer this as well. So the renovations for the kitchen, is this for a commercial kitchen? And I imagine this was something that there's no minutes for the working group, unfortunately, so I couldn't research this myself. So this was a decision of the working group to move with this RFP, with this, the guidance regarding the type of kitchen that we're going to be putting in at the old school site.
Right, so in terms of the types of commercial kitchens, what's called level 1, which is just essentially set up to warm up items. So it's not even any cooking permitted on that. And then there's class 2, which is cooking is permitted, but there's no deep frying. So class 3 is I guess what I could call full commercial kitchen that permits you to deep fry, and that's not the type of kitchen we're looking for just because of the cost of maintenance, the annual cost of, you have to do regular inspections and things like that, so that's, and also it doesn't really fit the purpose of the, emergency, did you say emergency EOS for the, group lodging. So, I don't expect that we'll be doing fries.
Okay. So with the group lodging, it's required that we put in commercial grade dishwashers and sinks, and because there's substantially more money. We've got money in the Investing in Canada infrastructure grant that the fire chief wrote. We do have money. I'm just wondering, the group had decided we're going to need a commercial kitchen. Was that based on the group accommodations or some other criteria?
Chief Dunlop, maybe I'll let you speak to that, because I wasn't involved in the discussion where that was prior to my time. I'll move away from the podium side.
It's not a commercial.
Yeah, so the question is whether or not we decided to go for commercial appliances?
Yeah, so these are commercial appliances that are going to be installed in the kitchen. So it's commercial grade, it's not just everyday Maytag, right?
Correct, and that's just for the use. If we're talking about having weddings in there, that sort of thing, we need something that's going to last. I think I don't know a lot about appliances, but I know like the fire hall has a commercial dishwasher, but it's small and it's just much like the community house has a commercial style dishwasher. So maybe the question is the word commercial. We're not looking for high-end restaurant grade dishwashers. It was more, the intent anyway, was something that would withstand the ongoing use of the purpose of the gym and group lodging purposes for sure, and make it stand up for the use, I guess is really what it comes down to. As for the working group, I'm not really sure. We did discuss briefly what was going on there. So kind of what I thought we were all on the same page as what we wanted to see in there, and it wasn't going to be a commercial kitchen, a true commercial restaurant kitchen, just due to the costs involved.
Okay.
So, does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think so. Councillor F, did you want to speak to that as well?
Just that, yeah, it was going to be prohibitive to create a complete commercial kitchen. So it's sort of like, this is kind of a happy medium where we're doing things that meet all the food safe standards for food preparation, but limited preparation, like as the CAO said, not with deep fryers and things like that. But we do need, you have to have a sanitizer if you're serving the public at all with dishes and stuff. So, certain aspects of it are commercial grade.
Okay. Okay. Was there any other comments or concerns regarding this? Go ahead, Councillor
Just
Johnson.
had one. Spent my whole career working in commercial kitchens, a variety of styles. Commercial kitchen doesn't, they're always going to be food safe, but you can do a commercial kitchen without and still be food safe. Food safe is a different category of inspection. So my only question really is, so stainless steel stove with 6 burners, is that like similar to what we have in the fire hall? That's that commercial style? Or is it domestic stove with 6 burners? They can still be stainless steel domestic. Do you know what I mean? Like a wool.
Yeah, at this point, it was more of a design build concept, in that, we have to go and take a look at what the costs are. We know what our needs are.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about it. That's why we need to bring the experts in to better refine what we need for a kitchen like that. Yes, we want to go with stainless steel appliances. That was the point. Do we need 4 burners versus 6 burners? There were some different discussions on, the size of what we might need in there. 6 obviously, but if it's cost prohibitive, then it might be, taken back to 4.
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend a burner or a stove like what we have at the kitchen because, or at the fire hall.
So those are really heavy duty commercial stoves.
That's not what
whether it's 6 or 4. It's more the sturdiness of it. I don't know how to explain it in lay terms. Sorry. The next one was about the stainless steel countertops. Correct?
Yes.
So we're good. Okay. Could we not just go with other styles of countertops, or is it just because we've got, sounds like we've got a lot of money to spend, but I, don't want to put good money after bad and still last 50 years.
It was just discussed at the working group that the stainless steel was kind of the intent. It's easy to clean. It tends to be a bit more sterile and long term. Again, I don't know that that is written in. I mean, I don't know enough about this, right? So it's kind of the intent of the RFP was a design build, so that bring in some people that actually know more about this than we do, and take some guidance and discuss what would be the best within a certain parameter.
So it says here the three compartment deep sink plus a commercial grade dishwasher. So I know you can get countertop above or on top, and everybody can see if they go to the Sugar Shack, the above one that's commercial grade. They're really scoop and they'd be ideal for something like this. But 3 sinks, usually they're the size of their largest stock pot to put in. As this isn't going to be used for business, do we need
You need to have a third sink just for VHA and for food safe. I know that we split hairs on food safe and VHA and all that, but if we're going to use this as a group lodging facility, we need to have 3 different sinks. Now, one technically, I believe, and we'll have to go back and check the regulations, needs to be a separate hand washing sink. So those are the type of regulations that we have to make sure that we're following, and we need to bring experts in for that. I don't think any of us on this committee are experts in designing a kitchen, so that's kind of that's why we're bringing in a project manager for that.
Okay. I'm just wondering how much we're going to actually use it. I mean, group lodging is if there's a natural disaster, but weddings we're not going to be cooking in there necessarily, heating up. Catering companies usually cook off-site. That was my only inquiry about it.
Yeah. And that was kind of the point for regular uses. It would be a warming kitchen, if you will, for caterers to come in. However, there are regulations that we have to have. If we're going to have a group lodging facility, we do need to have the ability to do certain things.
So with some of the funds, and it's just away from the RFP, but I'm not on the working group and I don't have any information on it. Do we have sufficient funds to sizably upgrade that building so that if there's an earthquake, it isn't the kitchen's the only thing left standing?
That's not included in the grant.
Okay.
That wasn't part of the scope on that one. And remember, there are other emergencies that we could use that group lodging for other than just earthquakes. Well, I totally agree with you, but that's a big ticket item that would have been beyond the scope of that.
Just concerned because it is a very old building. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so we still have some money left over in that infrastructure grant. I understand from discussions earlier this evening that is the hard stop date is the end of the year. So if we haven't spent the money by the end of the year, we will not be able to use the full grant. So we could, I'm not saying spend willy-nilly, but we should make sure that at least the purchase orders go out this year so that we don't have to give that hard-earned money back, right?
Yes. If I may, there are a couple other projects. If the kitchen gets completed in time, or we feel that it's completed sufficiently, we do need a complete new alarm system in the building.
Mm-hmm. Well, that would be something that the working group would bring back for approval, I would say.
Yeah.
I would encourage you to make sure that you don't leave this till September, October, because December is right around the corner. So maybe think about it now.
Hence the reason this is 2 now, so we can get the kitchen and the washrooms rolling.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Just another comment about the kitchen is that we also talked in the working group as far as the type of kitchen that we could put in right now, but that would also have the potential with certain things that we were putting in there that it could possibly in the future be upgraded to a commercial level kitchen. And the working group just got as far as wanting to get this RFP out, and then once we get the contractor, whoever's doing it, in place, hopefully then we can meet with them as far as more specifics like 6 burners versus 4 burners, and work more with the experts, which we aren't.
Okay. Okay, great, thank you. So just a word of caution for other working groups, because we've got the Bufferlands Working Group. It'd be really great if you could keep minutes. I know the Dogs and Working Group were pretty fastidious about their minutes, so that it was open for everybody to see what was happening at the council-sanctioned working group. So I'd like to see minutes going forward, and for the working group as well. Okay, go ahead.
So questions through the chair to Councillor Epp. Do we know when this will get started, the renovation?
Oh, well, I guess it depends on tonight.
So
if we award the contract, then I guess we'll, hear from them. They've got seem to have a timeline in this agreement.
So I was just thinking, approximately, we talked about the car show, people being able to use washrooms, and if the washroom's going to be renovated, I'm just thinking logistics of accessibility to the building if it's under construction.
Well, I guess it's possible.
Okay, possible.
Question for Councillor. Are you supportive of the recommendation?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and would you like to make that motion then?
I'll move that council consider awarding the contract for the Metchosin School washroom and kitchen renovation RFP to Cartier Projects and Construction Limited in the amount of $392,350 excluding GST.
I'll second.
Okay, this is moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Councillor Schuken. More discussion? No? Okay, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none opposed, that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you for the discussion, and thanks for the answers, Fire Chief and Ms. Tarnowski. Okay, with that, we have 12 minutes left before 9:30. 11 minutes left before 9:30. This is the point where the public's invited to ask questions. If you'd like to ask a question, please identify yourself and give us your road.
Good evening, my name is Gary Smurfett and I live at 3950 Gilbert Drive.
Thank you.
My question is regarding the code of conduct that was discussed and the requirement that all input from experts go through the CAO. Now, we have MESAC, which has experts, and there's a member of council sitting on it, and there's information provided that goes to the council. It doesn't, that's not going through the CAO. The working group that we're discussing tonight, we got expert opinion, and we didn't go through the CAO, and we met with contractors and suppliers on our own on the site without going through the CAO. I personally have been asked over my 10, 20 years here for opinions from members of council and mayors on matters related to road paving, stormwater, things like that. None of that was directed through the CAO. I think you have to pay careful attention to the wording that you come up with in that section of the policy so that you don't unduly restrict yourselves as members of MESAC or PSAC or Parks and Trails or whatever working groups you establish, so that you end up being unable to get the information that you want unless you channel everything through one person in staff. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Hi there. I'm Shane Sear, Kavir Road. I just wanted to address the RFP that you guys just voted on. I just wanted to put it back to staff as what the scoring criteria was for that award. And also, excuse me, what items were removed so that the price was adjusted to apples, and was there a requirement for structural and architectural for the project?
Okay, thank you, Shane. I don't know if our interim CAO has all those questions. Would you like to respond at the next meeting, or would you like to respond now?
I will respond in the next meeting, because I know what the items were removed, but it's better if I respond in writing the next meeting.
Okay, and just to make sure that we had recorded all the questions, Shane, can you just repeat them again?
Yeah, so I was just wondering what the scoring criteria was for the RFP, because there wasn't anything listed on the RFP itself. And I'm just wondering what was removed from the other contractors' prices, so then we were comparing apples to apples. And then was there any requirement for structural or architectural in the RFP requirement? Because to be honest, I was going to bid on the project, but there wasn't enough information to bid on the project. And I'm just kind of curious as to why we're awarding a job to a contractor that was $35,000 more than, when I look at the two bids and I compare the two, there doesn't seem to be a lot of differences between the two, and I'm wondering why we're bidding, we've got a contractor spending a lot of time putting these bids together. I know how long it takes to do them. We're spending $2,000-$3,000 to put these bids together, and it just kind of seems odd to me that we're going with another contractor for less money, or more money than the other guy. So, yeah.
Okay, thanks for that. Actually, that's good education for the council as well to understand the criteria, so thanks for your question.
Okay,
I appreciate it.
Okay, cheers.
Okay, so.
Nicole Schicken, Lavon Road resident. This is just kind of a question about the budget. Thank you, first of all of you, and especially Councillor Donaldson, for leading the budget workshops and talks and all the hours you put in. I'm really pleased with the result that you all came up with. But my question has to do with the shift to go, away from gray infrastructure, as in a big roads reserve, because it sounds as though the district keeps topping up an $800,000 road reserve. And it's interesting to me that we're not investing more in green infrastructure, and there's still this sort of commitment to that old fossil fuel gray infrastructure. So I would just love to see, and this, I think this sort of pertains to the code of conduct, because I'm wondering about that decisional power of our elected representatives to kind of guide staff decisions. And it worries me a little bit that our democratically elected representatives are going to be hampered in sort of determining direction. If they're, if like you can't instruct staff on certain matters, especially around changing philosophy, let's say the roads philosophy. So it's not really a question, but it's a hope, I guess, that we can move away from that old fossil fuel roads infrastructure and towards green, nature-based solutions.
Okay, thank you. Okay, good. Pause for caution, and we don't have to answer a rhetorical question, but thank you for the question. It's certainly valid and something that we should think about going forward. Thank you. Okay, seeing none others, I'm going to take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Oh, no, you're okay.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, who's doing it? Moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Schuken to adjourn. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Quick off the button.